Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential freedom through land investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. Hey everyone, this is episode 99 of the Real Estate Investing Podcast, discussing why we bought 40 acres for ourselves. I'm your host, Daniel Apke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. Before we get into the show, let's go over a question from one of our featured members in our free Discord community. Today's question is from Matthew. What happens if you price too high and then cannot give the sellers the amount on the original purchase agreement after further due diligence? Really, really good question, Ron. We were talking about this a little bit last night in the webinar.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know what we do, we send direct mail to vacant landowners across the country, and all of our mail has prices on it. So that's part of our strategy, is by pricing our mail so the sellers know the amount that theoretically we can pay for the land. And what Matt is asking is, what if you overprice essentially? What if you overprice? Like, what do you do there? The answer is pretty similar. We did talk about it last night on the webinar. You want to move fast on these. So you get the purchase agreement, you do your due diligence, and then hopefully within 48 hours, you can go back to them and tell them, like, listen, either maybe you found the best case scenario is you found something that there's some kind of small defect, and you can negotiate down based on that. If there's not a small defect, you just got to say, like, the market's changed a little bit. And right now the market is changing. It's going down a little bit. Since I sent this letter, the market's changed a bit. Unfortunately, all I can go to is $17,000. I know my original offer was $20,000, but unfortunately right now I can't do that $20,000. If you want to move forward, great. We can close this within 2 weeks. If not, I completely understand. And that's as blunt as you want to be, I think, Dan.
Yeah, the biggest thing to note here is this is a scary conversation to have, right? You sent someone $17,000 offer and now you can only offer $12,000 or whatever that situation looks like. It's scary to call them and take that $5,000 away from them that you sent them. And they're probably going to be pissed at first. But I'll tell you from experience, you will be successful. And it obviously depends. If you're going from $20,000 to $1,000, you're going to be less successful than $20,000 to $17,000. But you'll be successful more times than you won't be successful. I've seen it over and over and over again, situation after situation. I've done it. Ron's done some negotiation, and more recently, our salesperson has done it. And I just see it from a third eye. It works very, very well. You have to get comfortable with those situations. You will turn bad deals into good deals over and over and over again, especially as the market tightens up. But that's all I have to add to it. Let's get into the show, Ron. Why we bought 40 acres for ourselves. I wanted to start going over the details of, how we acquired it, the area, what it's like, just the land. I mean, this is gorgeous land. It's something we've always had on our mind. We've always wanted to buy land, but we just hadn't had the right property come to us. And then this situation appeared, Ron.
Yeah. So it came from an investor who does things similar to us. We gave him a pretty good wholesaling fee, or assignment fee, I guess you would call it, Dan. So he made $30,000. So I think he's fine with it. We still have some good equity in it. It's within an hour of where we're from. So it's a good area. It's rural enough where it's not like city all around us. Obviously 40 acres is a ton of land. We've never personally bought and held that. We've bought that much land, but we've always turned it around and sold it really fast. So, I mean, it was a good opportunity. Right now we're getting some work done on it. We're really excited about the future of the land. But the way we acquired it was by not necessarily a wholesaler. The guy does the same things we do, but he wanted a quick turnaround, and we gave him that. So we bought the title, put it in our name, and gave him I think it was a $31,000 assignment fee or something like that. But it was pretty smooth, the transaction, Dan.
It was very smooth. So what it looked like for that investor, he needed capital at the time. We paid a total of $102,000 or something like that, around a little over $100,000. He was under contract for $70,000. It was a good deal still at $100,000. We love the land. It's outside Cincinnati, where Ron and I are both from. Ron currently lives there. I go back and forth quite a bit. So it's outside. It fit the description, 40 acres, beautiful, had woods, really just really nice land. And when you talk about the area outside Cincinnati, it's in these rolling hills in Kentucky. It's beautiful land. There's a creek. It's rural. I mean, you drive up to this land, you go through a gate. There's chickens on the road. There's cows everywhere, Ron. There's little farm dogs everywhere. It's really, really cool. It's great to have. And that's kind of a picture of it, right? It's 40 acres. At the end of the 40 acres on the far side from the road, there's a creek. So it kind of goes down to a creek, and there's pasture, like corn type of fields, more like thorn bushes and things like that. But it's a good variety, really good hunting land, recreational land, tons of animals all over the place. It's in a beautiful area, and that's was the most appealing thing to me when we bought this.
Yeah, and I feel like some 40 acres feel like less than 40 acres. This 40 acres feels like it's 120 acres because the surrounding areas, like nothing's, it's not like it's, there's things are commercialized all around. It just feels like you can go over our boundary line to the next boundary line and like there's just nothing. Like there's just, it is extremely secluded, but at the same time, we're only 15 minutes from a very main highway. Going out there, like it was exciting. The first time walking land like that, because we'd never been to one of our properties as far as one that we've bought and flipped. I've never. I don't think Daniel has either. So it was something that new to us, walking land, having a map up, kind of looking at where we're going. And we walked for an hour, 2 hours, and we probably went over 10 acres of it. So it's a ton of land, and I'm excited for the future of it.
We were walking very slow though. It's thick. You get in there and there's rose bushes and 3-inch thorns popping in us, and it was some thick land, and that's why we'll get into it more. But some of the things, our plans, we're clearing it out and doing things like that. But the creek was the biggest surprise. Like we had no idea how big this creek. Ron, I have a picture of Ron sticking a stick in the water, like leaning over, sticking it to see how deep it is. I'll share that photo in our Discord. But from like the banks, 1 foot off of the bank, it was 3-4 feet deep. I think your stick showed, Ron, right? So if you go to the middle, and keep in mind it hadn't rained in 2-3 weeks, and I know that because our dad owns a restoration business, and he gets business from basements flooding, and he said how dry it's been. So once that raises, like this creek is swimmable, 6 to 8 feet in the middle minimum, I'd imagine. So that was the biggest surprise for us. But Ron, what are our plans? What are our plans for the land? I know we're doing some work right now. Let's hop over to our plans.
So looking at the numbers from where we bought it, what it is, we bought it for 102,000 all in. I think extremely conservatively, it's worth $160,000 today before we did any work to it, and we've done some work to it since. So right now, hopefully in the next 7 to 10 days, we're going to get all of those thorns, all the weeds, all the brush. Essentially, is what it is. It's a variety of stuff. We're going to get all of those cleared in, and it's a combination of not pasture. It could be pasture once this is all cleared, and woods. It's probably about 20 acres of each, I would say. So first step is getting that cleared. Daniel and I are not in a rush to do anything crazy with this land, build on it. But that is, as far as what we see a future is putting a cabin on it. Nothing crazy or nothing huge. I don't think the land is meant for that, but a small cabin where you can camp out there, you can hunt out there, you can go for a weekend. It's a weekend getaway, essentially, be on land. It is crazy. I was going to say don't have service, Dan, but we do have service out there, which is insane for how rural it is. But the equity, we bought it and did this because we got immediate equity, and the long term equity gain is going to be huge as well. This land could easily be worth $500,000 in 20 years, I would think, Dan.
Yeah, and we'll get into the investment perspective next round, but we had our Discord Friday Q&A, and we were all concerned because we went down there in the morning, and our Q&A is at like 12:30, and we were all concerned we weren't going to make it and have service. And we got there and we're like, wow, we have good service here. And that was a really big surprise, just having service out on land. I know people are probably thinking like you go to land to get away from service, but for situations like that, or go out there and work and have internet access and things like that, so you can go out there and not completely throw everything behind. You can go out there for an afternoon and catch up on emails if you really need to. I think that was really, really big for me, and I was happy to see that. But for the cabin perspective, Ron, like you said, we bought this for recreational land. This isn't going to generate profit for us, and it was hard to look at that way, Ron, because everything we've done in the past is like, how much is this going to make us? How much can we profit a month off of it? Like rental properties, things like that. We looked at this different. We want to use it for ourselves. It's extremely low to hold land long-term perspective, which will get us into the investment part, Ron. But mainly just a cabin, get away from the city. It's an hour from Cincinnati, so it's perfect for that.
And one thing I want to touch base before I forget, because I've thought about this a few times during this podcast, and I want to make sure I touch base on it. This is not meant for people who are just getting into land flipping or anything like that. where you kind of run into a piece of land and you fall in love with it. Like if you have the capital, great, go ahead and try to and hold it for 15, 20 years. But if you're capital constrained, like you don't want to do that. This is not, you want to first make a lot of money in land. There's always going to be other properties that you can buy in your area or whatever. But I just wanted, it's been, I mean, this is our first piece of land that we're going to hold long term. And we've been in this business a long time because our whole mindset up till when we ran into this deal was just kind of turn the equity, make cash, put it into the next deal. And we just kept on doing that over and over. Short term, financially, we could have put our $102,000 to better use. But like Daniel said, that was not the purpose of buying this.
Exactly. Yeah, really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. That is not our business model. Our business model is cash flowing from land, from buying it cheap and selling it for more money. So I'm glad you touched on that, Ron. Let's get into the investment perspective though. What the numbers look like. So you already mentioned that a little bit. We bought it for $102,000. We could sell it right now for 160. We've already put some work into it, so maybe we're pushing 180, 190. And one thing that really stood out, Ron, was when we got to that land, how hard it was to navigate because it was so thick. I told Ron, I was like, imagine how much equity you can immediately gain by just bush hogging this and
Yeah.
mulching this out and making it so someone can walk that land and walk to the hill where there's an overlook of a valley and just actually see where their house would be. Like this land we're typically selling, buying and selling, we don't do anything to, and it's all like that most likely.
Yeah, and the guy the guy who's clearing our land tried to offer me to buy it. I'm like, no, thank you. I think he would have paid like 130 to 140 cash, and he just like, I love this land. I can see holding this land a long time. I said, I see the same thing. I appreciate the offer, but I see the same thing. And can you please go clear my land? So that's where we are right now. It's a long term hold for us. I think Daniel and I have talked about it because it is. I don't think it's the perfect land to like split 20 and 20, but Daniel and I have talked about it since it's obviously us joint owning it right now. Talked about splitting it 20 and 20 so we both kind of have a piece. And I think it helps security. Like if Daniel and I do have different plans with our side of the land, whatever. So that is a potential down the line. But there's the nice thing about this, Daniel, with a lot of business moves, like it's just so rushed and like you're trying to make decisions fast. This is just like whatever happens, happens. We pay a couple $100 in property taxes a year. We get way more than that back in equity. So it's nothing like, it's nice not having to like stress about the decisions with this. Like we can be very slow and thoughtful with what we do with it.
That's the nice thing about holding investment land as an investment. It's just so cheap to hold. Like we had an episode on uh, rental properties versus land investing where we touched on it in an episode, and that was the biggest difference is how cheap land is to hold. Yes, it doesn't bring you cash flow. There are ways to cash flow from it, but this doesn't bring you cash flow. It's a long-term equity gain, and like Ron said, we're paying $200 a year or something like that for tax. So it's nice because we're not in a rush, like Ron's saying, but that area is growing. It's a beautiful area. It's growing. It's a very safe long-term hold, and it's very cheap. It's very, very cheap to hold. And that equity is going to go up and up and up just because how beautiful the area is and the land is. And it's a desirable area outside of a fairly major city.
Very cool. Yeah, I agree. It's gonna grow. Like we're in between two cities, really, Daniel. Like it's right in between Lexington and Cincinnati. So there are Lexington's not the size Cincinnati is, but I mean it's within an hour of both cities, and you're just the money and the people are spreading out from these cities, and it's just coming down, and you can see it. Like right now in the area that we bought this land, it's not quite there yet, but it's not more than 5-10 miles north of it where you have some really nice, really wealthy people. But I wanted to get into, Dan, what's kind of your thought process going forward as far as buying more of this type of land? Like for me personally, it's if we run into deals, like I'm more than happy holding land for whatever, 5-10 years, or you can even 1099 out of a piece of land like this. 1091, 1031, 1031.
1031 exchange.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
keep on saying 1099 because that's where we're always writing for these tax things. But 1031 out of these and just keep getting higher and not have the tax implication. But what's kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think this land, I couldn't imagine selling it anytime soon just because, like you said, it's such nice land. If I sold this to get another piece of property, it would have to be nicer than this, which means it needs a bigger creek, more land, whatever. It's going to be hard to beat this land, I think, in that area. But it is a good long-term investment. Like I do see putting my money in more land for long-term holds. I want farmland. I really do want farmland and rent it out to farmers. That's my like kind of future. I think I haven't really taken the steps to do that, but I really would like to hold farmland, I think, Ron. And honestly, like looking at this 40 acres, I want to buy more land around it. I want to own a lot, like 100 acres right there would be nice. Buying some of the neighbors up over time. Like it's not going to happen overnight. I already texted a few of them. No one seemed interested yet, but maybe, in a year or so, they will split off 20 acres to me here. And then a couple of years, they'll split off another 20. Another neighbor might do it. Like people will want to sell eventually, and we have cash and it's very powerful. They'll sell under market value to us because of that reason.
Yeah, I think from a money perspective, like with what we do, guys, we teach you guys, or we buy land at an extremely big discount, 40 to 50%, 35% even sometimes. So theoretically, you buy 100 acres, like at 35% or whatever, like you can subdivide off 40 acres and probably make 100% of your money back and then still have 60 acres. So just there's so many opportunities when you buy high volume land. It's a lot more difficult when you're buying 5, 10 acres. But if I buy 200 acres at 60% of market value, I guarantee I can figure a way out to keep 100 acres and make all my money back plus more money. So just different opportunities like that. And then you have the long-term hold, Daniel. And that I think you can build a ton of long-term wealth like that, where you literally have no money out on the land and you can pull your money back in for other deals. So there's just a lot of opportunities in that. Like we said to start this, we never did this for the money or are holding this for the money. If we wanted the best financial thing, we would flip this and sell it for 180 grand or $160,000 and then use that money towards our next deal. But that was never really the thought with this land.
Yeah, and another thing we can do from an investment perspective is put a cabin on one of the corners, because in 5, 10 years, we might have 10 times the amount of cash and money we have now. So put a little I don't want to say crap cabin, put a little dinky cabin like you're talking about on the corner. And then you can always split that off and sell it with beautiful views. It's on the corner, split it off, sell it. And then when we have 10 times more capital and money than we have now, we put a 5,000, 10,000 square foot cabin on it or whatever we want to do. That's another option as well, is what I was thinking, because you can, like a cabin in that area, Ron, on that with a nice view on a corner, split it off and sell it. I couldn't imagine what that would sell for relative. There's some nice houses going in those areas now.
Yeah, it's not necessarily on our cul-de-sac yet, but without a doubt, like there is, there is. We got some old beat up mobile homes kind of in our area, but even if it doesn't change, 40 acres, we're still so secluded where our home site is, and people, we got a gate and all that stuff. I'm excited, Daniel. I'm excited to get back out there. It's an hour away, but I'll probably make it down this weekend or something.
Yeah, like you'll definitely see a couple Confederate flags. We passed a guy with smoking a cigarette. He was definitely overweight to say the least, and his butt crack was out, and he was fixing his car, and he looked at us, and there's a bunch of Confederate flags outside. So it's Kentucky. There's some interesting people in that. Nothing against Kentucky or anything, but the movement hasn't really affected our cul-de-sac yet, but that whole area is definitely coming. But that's all I have, Ron. You have anything less to add?
No. Like I said, don't get distracted with the idea of this, but down the line, like if you guys just started flipping land, whatever, in the last 6 months, 8 months, like realistically, you can have enough cash to get a long-term hold within the next 6 to 12 months, whatever. But don't get too distracted on that. We're excited for this. We'll post a lot of videos, a lot of pictures in Discord about this, about the process of the land, and hopefully it kind of gets you guys interested. I love this stuff. I love land. It's really kind of brought out a passion for me, Daniel, going out there.
Yeah, it's really cool. And well, everyone, again, thank you for joining. If you guys have already not, please give us a review on Apple Podcast if you got any value. It really helps grow this podcast and our business in general. If you guys got any value from it, please go to Apple Podcast and leave us a review. Other than that, thank you for joining, and we'll see you guys next episode.
Thanks, guys.